is Steve Cassidy. Traffic directors are Megan Rose and Tic Tantiwan Gumpai. Network Sales Manager is Dan Stores. Network Director is Kevin Shockey. Chief Network Engineer is Jason Gorodetzer. Senior Vice President of the Altitude Radio Network is Dave Fleck.
You want a hard-working team? There it is right there.
This broadcast was a presentation of the National Hockey League and the Altitude Radio Network.
Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. Colorado Avalanche post-game coverage continues now with Between the Pipes. Presented by Safeway. Download the Safeway app and get exclusive grocery offers and perks. Fresh foods, local flavors. Now, let's go Between the Pipes with Alex Ryan-Emmy and Mark Springer.
Overskated by Provorov. Rantanen now for Cale Makar up top. Devon Toews. Nathan MacKinnon near side circle towards the net front. Save made by Tarasov. Rebound not clear. Makar from Rantanen. Toews. MacKinnon one-timer off the post. Bouncing puck. Where is it? How does that not go in the net? Unbelievable. And it's off the skate of Devon Toews and out towards center ice. When it's not your night, it's not your night. Perfectly set up, and MacKinnon ranging off the plumbing.
You heard the call right here on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. The Avalanche travel to Columbus and fall by a score of 4-1 with an empty netter. Kirill Marchenko scores one. Alex Nylander scores his 9th and 10th of the season to put Columbus up 3-0 by the time the second period had ended. And this game it felt like one of the more dominant 3-goal losses I've ever watched. And listen, there's times where you put up 47 shots against a team that went 16-2-2 in their previous 20 against you, and you score 7 goals in a win. And then there's times where you put up 50 shots against a team that's going to be picking top 3 in the NHL draft this year, and you only score 1 and give up 3 and then an empty netter to make it 4. Them's the breaks. Way she goes. Tough cookies, however you want to say it. Avs fall by a score of 4-1 in Columbus as we welcome you to Between the Pipes, presented by Safeway here on Altitude Sports Radio. I'm your host, Alex Ryan-Emmy. You guys know me better as Raj, joined by Jordan Berg behind the glass today. And as always, my co-host, my partner, the radio machine, slugging down a body armor because he's a healthy guy and likes that, Mark Springer.
Strawberry banana. Should I plug him? Pay me money. Body armor. Maybe then I'll care about this game if Body Armor paid me. The Avs played very well.
Yes, the sponsorship is dependent on you having a hot take about a Game 75 loss against Columbus.
How do you get up for that game? And they played well. How many shots? What was the final shots on goal, Tolly?
Official by the NHL says 46-25.
That's pretty dominant.
And listen, I don't think Colorado took the game off. I just think it was one of those ones that you hit a few posts, right? Like Cale hits one 90 seconds into this game, and Makar rips one off the post, and Middlestat hits one right off the crossbar. It was just one of those games that it just didn't go your way. That's what it felt like. It just simply did not go your way, and it's frustrating. I get it. There is a very real effect of this game to the Central Division standings, right? Like your path to the number 1 seed in the Central just got way harder, right? Because the one game that you had in hand against Dallas is now a loss to Columbus. Dallas does have a hard road. Their next game comes in a couple of nights against the Edmonton Oilers, who are scoring at will right now, but you have a 4-point night remaining against Dallas left in this season. Is it out of the equation by any stretch? No. To still win the Central. Is it harder via losses to Montreal and Columbus in regulation? Yeah, it is. But guys, Colorado threw 80 pucks at the net tonight. 80 pucks. Ones that missed the net, were blocked, or actually found Daniil Tarasov, who was very good this evening. Very, very good.
Good young goaltender matchup tonight. Tarasov has actually got some promise there. I've seen him have some good starts this year for Columbus.
Again, I hate to be that guy. And yeah, sure. Am I paid to have a hot take? Yes. But my take on this game is way she goes.
Chris Wagner's your lone goal scorer despite the 46 shots on goal. Like, that's the way this game went for some reason. We've had a few of these like this recently. I mean, Jared Bednar, as I was running late getting in here, catching his post-game comments, he said it was a lot like the Montreal game, which it kind of was. I mean, that was a weird one where McKinnon keeps the point streak alive at home a minute into the game, and then nothing the rest of the way. They played better tonight than they did against Montreal. Like the effort was there. They played well. It's one of the lessons is that while this is a team that has proven time and time again that they can come back in any situation, you're not always going to come back. Sometimes being down 3-0 means the game is in fact over. So you can't rely on that in the playoffs. I'm glad they didn't come back tonight. I was thinking about this on the drive over. I'm glad they didn't come back.
Yeah, you can't rest on it.
Well, you only get so many of those bullets in the chamber per hockey season, playoffs included. Why burn a comeback tonight? They've had so many that you almost have like a limit on how many comebacks you can have per season.
I don't know if those things those don't have an expiration on them.
I know there's no scientific way to prove that. I'm just saying, hey, you keep coming. If you come back every game, sooner or later, you're not going to come back. Because you can't. Eventually, you will not come back.
The Montreal game was super similar. They threw 83 pucks at the net against Montreal,
despite only scoring one goal.
Right, and they dominated the pace of play, just like tonight. There were 4 different instances that were 5-on-5 hockey, not power plays. And the power play, again, I know it goes over tonight, but it was a slap shot regatta. Tarasov was just beating guys to the point. I didn't think I saw too many passes that were forced through multiple legs and multiple sticks. I thought that they moved the puck around for the proper looks. They got an awesome one-timer from Middlestat. Makar had a few shots. It just happened that, like, you didn't have Val in the net front there. And yeah, you lost against a team that it's largely an AHL team. I see the 2-5-1. Yeah, but you beat them 6-1 the other night. So are you still going to be the guy that says you should be way more freaked out about a loss to Columbus at this stage of the game, and then you're going to look back at the 6-1 drubbing on March 22nd? I bet you're the same text message that says when I looked at the Avs and they put 6 goals against Columbus at home that you went, well, it's Columbus. It doesn't matter. So you can't be both, right? You got to choose one. I don't think either one of them mattered. A 6-1 loss against them or a 4-1 loss. And once you dominated the pace of play, this just happens. I don't care about this in terms of your look moving forward. This does not scare me about what the Avs are or what they can do in the playoffs because of them losing a game to Columbus. It does directly impact the race for the top of the Central, for home ice advantage through at least the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, if not the entirety of the Western Conference playoffs. That's where it actually matters. But am I going to sit here and lose my mind over a game that you dominated? No, I'm not. I think that's a small brain move to do.
Look, tip your cap to Columbus in their building. And, Daniil Tarasov, 24 years old, has had some solid starts here and there this season. He saves 45 of 46. Like, that's a banner game for him. He can hang his hat on that going into next season. And it's a team that defensively, when they're healthy, they have Zach Werenski back there. Say what you want about Ivan Provorov, and he's had some controversy, but very talented defenseman. So the Avs only scored 1 goal. It was a hot young goaltender tonight with a solid veteran defense in front of him. And then they just capitalized off of turnovers from the Avs in the O-zone. It was a lot like that 4th goal that Georgiev allowed the other day against Nashville, where a miscue in the O-zone and a good 5-on-5 sequence where the Avs are whipping the puck, but just one missed pass, one lazy play, and boom, you turn it over, and it turns into a 2-on-1 rush the other way. That's how Columbus was able to get their goals. Dominant, extended offensive zone time, boom, one mistake, turnover, goal the other way. Like that honestly shouldn't happen multiple times in a period. It's just the way it went tonight.
Again, the Avs, between these 2 losses, the Montreal 2-1 loss and tonight's 4-1 empty net loss at the hands of the Blue Jackets, put 164 pucks toward the net in 120 minutes of play. They scored 2 goals. Sometimes you just get snake bitten. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and maybe you run into a hot goaltender, but it just felt like it was one of those nights. And if this was a trend, like if the Avs simply were not scoring goals, I could then look at this game and say, there's a red light going off. There's a panic button going off. But you scored 7 against Nashville, right? You scored 5 against Pittsburgh, 6 against Columbus, 4 against St. Louis. You scored 3 in a win against Edmonton, 4 in a win against Vancouver, 6 in a win against the Flames. Like, it's not like this team is going on a power outage right now. And you were also missing Val Nichushkin and Yakov Trenin, right? Like, you're missing a little bit of that firepower. I'm not going to sit here and just try and, like, throw out all of the excuses as to why you lost. But, I think it would be short-sighted of anyone to look at this and make a blanket statement about how, like, this is a damaging loss. You should look at this and make a greater statement as to what the Avs are or can be. I think that would be a short-sighted view of 1 of 82. That's what I look at. You have to look at segments. That's what Bednar always talks about, right? He talks about 10-game segments throughout the entire season. If you look at your last 10 games, the form's pretty good. And you're scoring a lot.
They have scored a lot, but in the last 4 games, one game you score 1 against Montreal, 2 against New York, now just 1 against Columbus, and then the 7 against Nashville. So 2 1s and a 2 in there. So a little bit of an offensive. But we're talking about
through the segment. Go through the 10-game segment. Those are 5 games where it doesn't look good, and you can throw out the outlier of 7.
Sure. And so maybe we're seeing, and I do think not having Nichushkin is big because, look, I like Brandon Duhaime, but the plan wasn't for him to be on the second line with Lehkonen and Middlestad, and Middlestad is still new to this team and still developing chemistry, so we might have some of that going on there. When you look at the amount of pucks being thrown towards and on net, and not as many goals as you would expect in 3 of those 4 games, okay, maybe it's a chemistry thing being developed in terms of finishing, in terms of those little nuanced details that get you those truly open looks where you're actually scoring goals. But, regardless of that, they're still dominant. The offensive zone time, the control of pucks, the shots, again, on and towards net. Those are your underlying more valuable statistics that will lead to those goals.
All right, let's go out to the text line, the Frady Cat line, where Alex has this text message. Fellas, it's another loss on the road. Another loss to a team dead last in their division right before the playoffs. Be a little bit more critical. It's a trend. Look at the record. You want to talk about trends? Listen, I've told you, I think that home ice matters in the playoffs for the Avs. I understand that. Do I think that the actual matchup matters more? Yes, it does. The actual matchup matters more. But if you want to look at trends, Alex, look at those 4 games that they beat St. Louis, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Calgary back to back to back. Is that a trend? Does that not count in your eyes? I'm being so short-sighted. Listen, it's a loss. Are they great on the road? No, they're not. They're not. But this should not, a 4-1 loss to Columbus in which you dominated the hockey game, by no stretch of the imagination, should allow you to be scared about what's going to happen on April 20th.
Look, sometimes this is the nature of the game.
Grow a pair.
This is the nature of the game of hockey, too. This is a sport where you can dominate statistically, and all the metrics will say you should have won this game based on the numbers. But that's not how pucks go in nets. Sometimes it's a tip, it's a weird bounce, it's this, it's that. And you can lose 4-1 while dominating the better part of a game, but just 1 turnover here, two turnovers there, boom. For some reason, you lose that game, especially on the road. And so many people, like, I'm sure when they win 7-4 on Saturday, no problems there. No, they're going to lose another game the rest of the way. Sure, you're penciling in Columbus as a win, but then I will present to you the rest of the NHL. And all of these people who are going to be critical of the Avs tonight, I'm sure this weekend, a bunch of them were saying, man, you know who I love to come out of the Eastern Conference? The New York Rangers. Love that team. Put that same energy on them tonight, who lost 5-2 at home to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we've talked a lot about the Penguins over the past month or so.
Not a playoff team.
This is the way this league is. This is the way that this sport is. You're not going to win every game. You cannot get caught up in the moment. You have to trust the roster that you have, the organization you have, the system you have, and know you're going to drop games that you probably shouldn't drop on paper. We saw it with the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL. I'm not going to relent on that until the Avs bow out easily in the playoffs. And then I'll say, well, you know what? That loss in Columbus was maybe a little bit of a foreshadow. We thought that with the Nuggets in March last year, and that did not pan out. They won a championship.
Again, I am of the mindset that home ice doesn't, it matters for the Avs this year. But in the same breath, I want to know... I want to know the fan base that is freaking out about that also freaks out about pushing for home ice, right? The fan base that freaks out about, well, yeah, the Avs are really bad on the road, but how many of you out there that are really scared about how bad the Avs road record is this year that were also on the bandwagon of, oh no, the President's Trophy's a curse because you push too hard in the regular season and then you're not fresh by the time of the playoffs. Once again, I'll tell you this, like I'm going to tell a 4-year-old one day when I have my first kid, you can't have it both ways.
People want us every show when they lose to go scorched earth and to say it's over and to say this team can't do it. Even though I look at this roster and it's a tremendous roster. It's my favorite roster in the NHL on paper. So I can't play that game. I cannot bow to your whims of you want me to do what? What do you want the Avs to do? Give me solutions because I love the construction of this roster. Give me solutions and make them not little tiny minutia things that you think are huge that are going to change the face of this team. They're fine. I still love my double parades bet that I have open. Love it.
You have a double parades bet open?
Cannot wait for the playoffs.
I have one on. I think I put like $1.67 on it a few months ago. You know, it'll pay out a couple $100 or something like that.
Look,
It'd be awesome.
7 more games to go in the season. That's 7 too many. The Nathan MacKinnon home point streak was awesome because it was like something else. Like maybe in April we could like worry about this, and that'll keep us going until April 20th when we can all celebrate 420 for the reason, of course, being that that's when the playoffs start, not for the other reason, you guys. The Nuggets lost 2 games this week. They didn't care, okay? Because it was late March and they didn't care. You want to know why I know they didn't care? Because they looked like they cared yesterday against Cleveland. The Avs cared tonight. It just didn't bounce their way. This is why the playoffs are not single elimination. This is why they are 7-game series, because there will be a game in any given series where the stats don't tell the whole story and the weaker team gets a game. You don't rely on flukes. You don't give it one and done where one stupid bounce eliminates a far superior team. Everyone's just wants to freak out. Everyone wants to be on the forefront of, I called it. I said the Avs aren't going to win it all.
That's not that cannot be a fun place to live as a fan.
I don't get it.
No one wants to be around the fan, like at the bar. You're out with your buddies, having a couple of CL smoothies and watching the hockey game, and you got negative. I hate to say it because he's my producer and he's such a positive guy. You got a negative Nelly sitting next to you, and your team eventually loses. You know, 6 of the 7 of the guys were all in it, and they were positive for the rest of the game. There's one guy that I told you they weren't good enough. You know who no one wants to be with that night? That guy. You don't want to be with that guy. That guy sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm not a blinders positivity type of guy. I'm not.
Look,
I'm just trying to give you the truth here. This doesn't matter.
If I didn't like this roster, then I would look to this game tonight and say, okay, yeah, you know, here's an issue, you know, because they're missing this here. You know, they don't have this. You know, for a while they didn't have second line center. We could have pointed to that. man, if anyone wants to be critical of Justus Onninen tonight, we've been singing his praises over the past 2 weeks. You're going to have down games, especially as a 23-year-old kid who hasn't even made 15 starts in the NHL yet. But I love this roster. I love this team. If I was a Chiefs fan, and if you were going scorched earth after they lost to the Raiders, fine. You had Patrick Mahomes on that team. You had Travis Kelce on that team. You had a puncher's chance. All the talent. Cale Makar has caught Quinn Hughes statistically. Yet Quinn is probably still going to win the Norris just because they're probably going to want to throw him a bone for having.
Quinn deserves the Norris this year. He's been phenomenal,
and I'm fine with that. And Avs fans, and you're not the only fan base guilty of this, but these fans want it all. They want it all. They want to win the President's Trophy every year. They want to win the Cup every year. If they don't have home ice, it's over. The reality of the situation is if the Avs are going to win multiple Cups, one of those runs, they were probably going to have to do it as not the top overall seed, either in the entire league or in their conference. When they won the Cup a couple years ago, they were the top seed in the West. They finished first in the West, okay? They did not win the President's Trophy. Florida won that, but that didn't matter. So they had home ice throughout. There was going to be a run if they were to win multiple where they would not have home ice in one series. So this is just an inevitable over the sample size of several years playing out. You're not going to be the top seed every year, even if you might have arguably the best roster in the game.
The Avs have a chance to win north of 20 games on the road this year if they win out. They've got 3 more remaining road games. They could finish at best 21-15-5 away from Ball Arena. When they won the Cup back in 21-22, they were 24-14-3. So you'd have 3 more regulation wins, 2 more or 2 fewer overtime losses in the Cup season. Again, that's assuming that if the Avs can win out on the road, their final 3 games, including the last 2 of this mini 3-game road trip at Minnesota, at Edmonton on Thursday and Friday, and then they play their final road game of the regular season Sunday, April 14 at Vegas before a 3-day layoff when they'll face Edmonton on Thursday. The earliest the Avs will start the postseason will be on Saturday, April 20th, a possibility of starting that on Sunday, April 21. Again, the road's harder to the 1 seed right now. It's not out of the question. You still have a 4-point game against Dallas. The Avs fall 4-1. It's Between the Pipes presented by Safeway with Raj and Spring on Altitude 92.5.
No one talks more Denver sports than Altitude Sports Radio 92.5.
There's something special about Colorado beef. It's just better. You know it, and I know it. And that's where Centennial Cuts comes in. Hey, it's Mark Mosier. You know, the Larson family has been in the cattle business for generations, and they know what Coloradans want. Premium, high-quality beef, sustainably raised, and finished on locally grown grains to give it that beautiful marbling and texture. Whether it's incredible individual cuts, the bundles, jerky, sausage, or even treats for your pet, it's all delicious and, yes, the highest quality. It's because Centennial Cuts cares. They're responsible stewards of the land. So when you want wholesome and delicious beef for your family, go to CentennialCuts.com. It's even sent right to your home. So don't wait. Go online and order now. Trust me, when you taste it, you will never go back. Remember the name. For the best beef you can find, it's CentennialCuts.com.
Crazy to think of everything that's happened in the last 25 years, but one thing that's remained as consistent as ever is Plumline Services. From Fort Collins to Castle Rock, Plumline Services has been earning the trust of Coloradans with plum-crazy service and pricing on plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, and drain cleaning. Plumline and Carrier. Turn to the experts. Schedule your service online at plumlineservices.com. For 25 years and counting, Plumline Services, partnering with great brands like Carrier. Service at home, servants at heart.
I got a nightmare phone call that no parent wants to receive.
Someone hit me going 60 miles an hour.
Dr. Ramos came highly recommended. When I showed him the x-rays, he immediately knew exactly what was wrong.
We've had a tremendous experience with Ramos Law. Really, I could not be happier.
Having the car accident was an accident. Finding Ramos Law was no accident.
Injured in a car accident? Ramos Law can help. RamosLaw.com.
McKinnon! He scores!
Avs faithful, do you want to take the first step in becoming a Colorado Avalanche season ticket member? Memberships are sold out at this time, so the best chance to get one is by placing your deposit and joining the A-List membership waitlist. The A-List membership provides exclusive member benefits, including pre-sale access to playoff tickets. Head to coloradoavalanche.com/waitlist to learn more.
It takes professional hockey players years of training and dedication to become so skilled at their profession that they make it look easy. The same can be said for the team at Plum Pros Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Drains. For over 20 years, Plum Pros has been providing Denver with good old-fashioned service, combined with the skill and expertise it takes to make their job look easy. For heating, cooling, plumbing, and drains, call Plum Pros today at 303-430-1911 or go to plumprosinc.com.
Altitude Sports Radio.
You never know what's about to happen in sports.
More Denver sports talk in 60.
Everything is still really expensive, and by the time you fill up the car and buy groceries, there's not much left. So you end up swiping your credit card, trapping you in high-interest credit card debt. If you're a homeowner, American Financing can help you. Interest rates have dropped into the fives, the lowest they've been in a long time, and much lower than your credit card interest rate. American Financing is saving customers an average of $854 a month by using the cash in their home to pay off high-interest debt. That's $10,000 a year. Make the free 10-minute call to see how much they can save you. They never charge any upfront fees, and if you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. Call American Financing, 303-695-7000. That's 303-695-7000, AmericanFinancing.net.
NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. APR for rates in the 5 start at 6.799% for well-qualified buyers. Call 303-695-7000 for details about credit costs and terms.
Colorado Avalanche Hockey, you're Between the Pipes. Presented by Safeway on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5.
Jonathan Drouin, near side half wall, holding. The trailer is Manson. He lets it go. Tarasov made the save. Again, didn't know where the rebound was. Walker cleans up off the near side boards, out of the reach of McKinnon, and it's bombed down ice by Columbus. Walker will settle it down, 9 3/4. Up the middle, Mikko Rantanen off his stick. Held for a moment, puck is there. Tarasov sprawls, where's the puck? It's underneath him, I don't believe it. Who in the world is Daniil Tarasov?
Avs fall 4-1 to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Between the Pipes, presented by Safeway. Alex Ryanemi alongside Mark Springer. I do want to thank you guys. And Mark said this in the break just now. I was about to have a snoozer of a show.
Yeah, in a perfect world, like, everyone would understand that, hey, the Avs dominated this game statistically. They lost, whatever. We can point to countless examples of where superior teams lose to inferior teams in the regular season, even in the final week or two of the regular season, and it impacted them not in the playoffs. We have many examples of that. That would lead to a boring show, though. But when we see you guys losing your minds because you're prisoners of the moment, and only what is directly happening right in front of you at that moment is what dictates your mood, and then you bring that to our text line, it fires us up, and now we have a somewhat entertaining show.
That's the beauty of sport. Like, that's the reason why this is a station. It's the reason why we have jobs like this. That is the beauty of fandom is blind reaction game to game. Live or die in the moment. I love that stuff. Absolutely love that stuff. But the best way to get me to care about a game that I don't care about is to tell me why I should care about it. So props to you guys. I love you very much. Let's head on out to the phone lines, 303-504-0925. Dan's been waiting patiently through the break. Dan, what's up?
Lost. Expectations are so high, especially after we won the cup. There's bound to have letdowns. It's a long season, but expectations is Stanley Cup or bust. Like the Broncos at Super Bowl or bust. Not lately, but games like this are going to happen. You run into especially a hot goalie, and That's what the goalie makes such a big difference, especially in the NHL. They can ride a high goalie. Columbus can't, but a really good team could ride it all the way to the Stanley Cup.
Without a doubt, Dan, I appreciate the call. And I think that's probably what unnerves Avs fans most right now is that they see how a hot goaltender or a previously unknown goaltender can come up and bite the Avs, right? It was actually a phenomenal text that came in just a few minutes ago and said, listen, I want to point out that I'd rather just play the team with the best goalies, the 744 says. The best strategy and the easiest way to beat the Avs is to play a bad goaltender, play a guy that we don't know anything about, and then they show up and they make 44 saves on 45 opportunities. I think it's funny. I know it's tongue-in-cheek. I understand that. It probably perturbs a lot of fans out there that it happens. It feels more often than not that you get goalied against, and that the Avs don't necessarily do it to other teams. That's probably the biggest pain point, is that, yes, goaltending's the biggest equalizing factor in all of hockey. It's the biggest ace up the sleeve in professional sports outside of starting quarterback and then maybe ace starting pitcher in the Major League Baseball postseason. Maybe just that. And even though you can only throw that guy once every 4 days at the very, very most, it seems as though the Avs don't have that ability to be like, you go up against, let's just say it's Vancouver in the East Final this year. Vancouver throws 45 pucks at you. The Avs don't have their legs going. Maybe there's an injury in there, and they only pot, 2 goals on 23 shots. But Georgiev shows up and makes 47 out of 48. I don't think a lot of the fan base has confidence that their goaltending can do that when other teams does.
That's actually hilarious to me, that any other team's goaltender could get red hot at any moment, but Alexander Georgiev can't. Like, that's the mindset of a lot of Avs fans. Georgiev has every opportunity to get as hot as any other goaltender in the playoffs. And I don't think the Avs are going to get sneaky goaltendered in the playoffs. Not in a 7-game series. And not with the pool of possibilities in front of them. It would have to take an out-of-nowhere goaltender on a good team.
Right. It would have to... You know what it would take? It's Jeff Skinner posting like a 935 and a 198 goals against average. That's what it would be.
And
for Edmonton.
Stuart Skinner, yeah. And
did I say Ed Skinner?
Did you say Jeff? I wasn't
Skinner?
even paying attention.
Ed Skinner's an actor. Jeff Skinner's a former 50-goal scorer and now just a no-name on Buffalo making 9 sheets a year.
But for every possibility that Stuart Skinner can do that, Alexander Georgiev could do that as well. They're very similar goaltenders. But, we've seen a couple years ago when they won the Cup in the first round against Nashville, they ran, was it David Riddick they were starting? And then Connor Ingram came in.
And he was good.
And he kind of gave him a little juice, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, Nashville got swept.
And it's a 7-game series, so Connor Ingram might have stumbled you for a game, but then they had a game to look at the tape, adjust, and they were able to figure it out. Again, tonight, if this was a 7-game series against the Columbus Blue Jackets, there is not a doubt in my mind that the Avs are winning that series. Look, they went 16-4 2 years ago. They're not going to go 16-4 again this year, and that's okay.
It's funny. I think about the up and down season that Darcy Kuemper had in 21-22, and I firmly believe Philip Grubauer, Darcy Kuemper, and Alexander Georgiev are all the same guy. They're the same goaltender. Every single one of them can, on any given night, look like a dude who's like, oh yeah, like he could finish top 7 in the Vezina, like Kuemper did in the Cup season. And then Kuemper can also look like he has for the past 2 years, with Washington. Grubauer can look like he has for the past season and a half, the first round playoff series notwithstanding last year, for Seattle, which is an above average NHL goalie, but nothing to write home about. I say all of that, and then you look back at what Darcy did against Tampa in the Stanley Cup final. where he had a 16-save shutout, and then he stopped 37 of 39, and then he stopped 22 of 23 in a Game 6 deciding game. Sure, did he have a few nights that were off where he had a 900 save percentage, 27 of 30 in Game 5? Yeah. Did he have an off night where they got the doors blown off of him on 22 shots in Game 3? Yeah, he has those off nights, but he showed up big time in the other 4 wins, putting up monster numbers, including a shutout against a back-to-back Stanley Cup defending champion who had been to the Cup Finals 3 seasons running. If Kemper can do that, I find myself believing that Georgiev can, even though my confidence in him this year has not been high.
But our confidence in Darcy Kemper was never particularly high. I mean, on paper, maybe it was because, we'd seen him in that bubble series when he was on the Yotes, and he played well there, and he'd had decent stretches in his NHL career, and he had the big body, so you knew that even when he would struggle in the regular season, that on paper, he was the type of goaltender who was enough. Even if it was just barely over the line, that's fine. That's all you need. And I feel the same way about Alexander Georgiev. So I agree with pretty much everything you said right there. I think really, for me, the larger meta story here, regardless of anything, because this team, I think I'm not going to say perfectly constructed, because we had a texter point out that, the defense of late has maybe let Georgiev down. And we've talked over the past few years about how it's not the most physical D-core. Okay,
no, it's arguably one of the least physical in the league.
Not the biggest
by design.
They're more, but that's exactly it. And in a salary cap era, you cannot have a perfectly constructed roster. You kind of pick which lanes you want to focus on, and you play and build to those strengths. But that will lead to deficiencies in other areas. Every team is going to have those positives and then those deficiencies. So I think, considering the makeup of this team, which is more speed and finesse, I think it's perfectly constructed. I think the work at the trade deadline was great. I don't see any holes. Sure, you could say goaltending is a question, but we talked about it. It's similar to Kemper. And you'll see goaltenders of that level have success with good teams in front of them. So I don't see a true flaw. I really don't. So the question really is, can this team win a Stanley Cup without Gabe Landeskog? That is the question.
And the question leads you, it then leads you years down the road, whether the answer is yes or no, right? Like, whatever definitive answer you get means something.
And it's an intangible thing, that aura, that energy that he provides. Because I think on paper, this team is very talented. But whatever that X factor is that he brings to the table, they did it with it. Can they do it without it?
I mean, the X factor he brings to the table is one thing, sure. And you're talking about this nebulous thing called leadership,
yes.
Right? Like
you can't even put your finger on it.
The man in the room is what you're talking about. You also have to remind yourself that Gabe Landeskog was a second overall draft pick?
I think it was second.
Was a second overall draft pick, is an Olympian, is a Stanley Cup champion, is a guy who, when healthy, was probably pushing toward a guy who could maybe hit 100 points, but probably cap out at 90, and that's not nothing to sneeze at either, right? It's not like this guy was a captain for you in putting up 40 points. It wasn't like he was a captain for you in playing 12 minutes a night. No, this dude was a 20-minute-a-night player who was physical, who could score upwards of 30 goals, who could put upwards of 75 points on the board in the regular season. He mattered, right? What should be terrifying to the rest of the league is if Colorado can win a cup without him.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Because one, if he comes back and he's healthy, oh crap. And two, if he's done forever, well, now they go out and get another dude for $7 million who can actually play.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying the yes or the no, if they win one with or without him, the league should be terrified. Because if he comes back and he's ready to go, this team is back to what they were doing in 21-22, going 16-4. Yes, the West is better, right? The West is way better this year than it was 2 seasons ago. That is now the defining question against this team as it was compared to the 21-22 team is with all of these giants at the top right now. Dallas, way better and ready. Edmonton, better, still don't know if they're ready to do it. Vancouver, way better, and I do think they're ready if they get the good goaltending, though we don't know what Thatcher Demko is going to be like. Winnipeg, I don't know if their top line defends well enough, but they've got the goaltending to do it. You could not have said that about, and I didn't even mention Vegas being the defending Stanley Cup champions, and there were reports coming out of Vegas today that said Mark Stone is ready to come back for the playoffs.
Of course he is.
He is ready to come back, and guess who is healthier than Mark Stone? That's Tomas Hertl, right? So
he's healthier.
Right, healthier than Mark Stone is at this point. You couldn't say that about the West 2 years ago. So there's a steep mountain to climb. I get it. I get why there's panic.
But the way that they've navigated these waters, because not having Landeskog it created this weird hurdle. And they did the best they could, acquiring Casey Middlestat. Ultimately, that was kind of the move. Maybe it was going to be Ryan Johansson. That didn't work out. Turned out to be Middlestat. I know Landeskog wasn't a center, but that kind of extra forward who needed to be a center because of the departure of Nas, they did it. They did it. This is as good as they could have done. Chris
completely agree.
Chris on the text line says my biggest concern is goaltending, but Georgiev's $3.5 million or whatever it is cap hit has allowed them to acquire Middlestat, to have the little bit of extra money to load up their skaters and D-man.
Yeah, your goaltending room costs you, as of right now, $4.4 million. Now, if you have a guy who's making 7, 8, 9, you're not only talking about no Casey Middlestat, you're talking about not being able to go out and get a guy like Ross Colton. You're talking about not being able to fit a guy like Sean Walker. You're talking about not being able to maybe even extend a player like Mikko Rantanen after the McKinnon historic signing last offseason, right? That's what happens, right? So the give and take is something that I think you have to be okay with. This is, unfortunately, this isn't NHL 24 and you can't turn the salary cap off. It'd be awesome if you could. It'd make the GM's job way easier, but you have to give up in certain areas. Like Spring said, there's not a perfect roster out there. There really isn't. The best teams in this league know their own identity. Colorado knows theirs. It's fast, it's puck moving, it's scoring, and it's not necessarily the most physical and stifling defense that you've ever seen. Vegas, on the other hand, is more tempered rather with their tempo. They block shots. They gum up the defensive blue line. They're big. They're imposing. It worked for them. Worked for the Avs 2 years ago to be smaller and faster and higher octane, right? The best teams know exactly who they are. And I think Colorado does. It just so happens that you're going up against a West that I think has 5 teams that legitimately can win.
And this is where it's fun, man. This is where it gets really fun. It's going to be a hell of a playoffs. I mean, these series are going to be really good. They're going to be battles. And as long as the Avs have McKinnon and Makar and Rantanen, I mean, that should get the attention of everybody in the Western Conference. I mean, that is still, if I am any other team in the West, that's the team I would least like to face.
Let's take one more call. Greg, you've been waiting patiently. You're live on 92.5 with Raj and Spring. What you got?
Hey, not too much. I just, hey, Raj, I just always like to hear you on Dempsey and Company as well, my man.
I appreciate you. Tune in tomorrow morning at 10.
Yeah, I'm always there in the mornings too. But I think that, in the long run, everything's fine. They just need to, dial it up when they need to. It's kind of like the Nuggets. We're just sitting waiting for when we need to dial it up. And when we need to dial it up, we're going to dial it up, and it's going to be nasty. So,
love the call, Greg. Thank you, man.
Look, they played well tonight. They brought it for the most part. There were some mistakes for sure. But as far as moving the puck in the direction you wanted to and controlling that puck and getting scoring chances. They were. But, and I know you want to fight for that top seed, but you really, like, this is what the great ones do. Like, this is what Michael Jordan did. He would create these chips on his shoulders that really didn't exist, because when you've done everything, how do you get yourself going? Like, when you take the ice tonight in Columbus, I know that seeding's on the line, but how are you really, like, you almost have to tell yourself, like if you have to convince yourself that Johnny Gaudreau slighted you somehow, and then that has to drive you for the rest of the game because you have played so many of these freaking games, and now you're in Columbus, Ohio on April Fool's Day. That feels like an April Fool's Day joke to be playing that game.
I have a thought process here. Because I've gone on a few shows spring, and as you have too, to talk about the Avs around the country, and with other teams that are compete. Like I've been on shows in Winnipeg, and Edmonton, and St. Louis, and I'm not trying to like pump my tires here. What I'm trying to say is that everyone who has ever asked me about the Avs in an outside market asks it from like a point of fear when thinking about Colorado, and like, oh no, what do we have to do to not see them in the playoffs? And my thought process here is, if you're trying to create a chip on your shoulder, do the Avs have to like look at their own fan base at this point? Because everyone else around the hockey world looks at the Avs and goes, I don't want to play that team. And then all the negativity I hear comes from the 5280. And then I get chastised for being a homer, and I get it. I understand. Spring and I do the official Avs postgame show on their flagship radio network. There's going to be a little bit of a slant to it. I'm sorry. We try and keep it as even keel as possible on a nightly basis, and I really do think we keep a good level head at these things. But it should say something when the rest of the hockey world, when they're tabbing our brains that watch this team for a living, they ask those questions from a state of fear and uneasiness. The negativity doesn't typically come from them of like, oh, we are holier than thou. We hope to get Colorado in the playoffs. They look like they're ripe for the taking. The only time I hear that is here.
And I'm so with you, and I've been frustrated with it too all show. But now, as I'm thinking about it,
and I love you guys, I do.
Maybe it's a good thing that Avs fans aren't cocky. They're not like, oh, we got this. That they are living on pins and needles. And we talked recently, many shows about, man, who do the Avs want to avoid in the playoffs? Oh, want to avoid Winnipeg. Man, if you're talking to Winnipeg, Nashville, LA, man,
get me away from Colorado.
You think Edmonton wants to see a team that has won 7 of 8 against them and just always gets them? All of the other teams, and maybe Vegas is the only team in the West that is saying, yeah, we'll play Colorado. Vegas might be the only team. All the other playoff teams, if they draw Colorado, they're going to be like, no! Not that one. Any team but that one.
We'll take one more call before we hit our final break of the program. Storchio, you're live on 92.5 with Raj and Spring. What's up, man?
Raj, what's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm well. How are you? It's nice to have a loyal Twitcher call into the program.
What's up, man? Hey, I want to talk about the goaltending for a second. Like, I love Juice. Everyone's talking about Juice. Everyone loves the way he's playing right now. But there's one thing I'm seeing about our goaltending that's just kind of a little awkward. Like, there's every time he takes a slap shot from the point, like, he ducks his head down. Like, he's scared of the puck. And everyone's saying, like Juice is the guy, Juice is the guy, Juice is the guy. But I only see him as a backup goaltender. And right now I'm trying to, like, call in right now to just squash this all right now. Georgie is our number one goaltender. He's going to be the number one goaltender going into game number 1. Period. End of story. I guess that's all I have to say.
Appreciate the call as always. I find myself agreeing with you. I did say pretty adamantly on our last show that I believe in Annunen as the future number 1 for this team right now. And that could change, but at 23, and he's an older 23 right now, if I'm correct, he's showing the signs of getting up to pace in this league. And he's got the requisite size, 6'4", north of 205 pounds, and he's starting to move with precision. And that's the one thing that I didn't see out of him. I thought he was slow to the puck, and I thought that he overcommitted on a lot of his pushes, a lot of his reads early on in his career. Me giving him the endorsement for the future, and I'm not even saying next year because, well, Georgie's under contract next year, man. Like, he's your number one next year as well. 2 years down the road, I think he could do it. That doesn't mean I think he should be starting in the playoffs this year. Georgiev's your number one. He's the better goaltender. He has the higher ceiling. He does have the ability to shut a team down in a postseason series, and I don't think you can entrust that to a 23-year-old netminder with under 15 starts in his career. You look at the starters around the league. Like, the youngest stud starter is Jake Ottinger. And he's turned it on as of late. Like, he looks really good over his last 3 weeks, but Jake Ottinger's been up and down for the majority of his career, right? He's 25. All of the other dudes, the top goalies in the NHL are 28, 30. You don't find a young, untested goaltender walking into this league and picking it up. It just doesn't happen all that often.
Well, yeah, at no point did we ever say that we thought Eustace should supplant Georgiev when he came in relief of Georgiev on Saturday. We obviously talked about how well he played, but I said, no, Georgiev's still your guy. It's been fun what Onanen is doing, and I was encouraged. Intriguing. I was encouraged enough by just the couple good starts he had before the trade deadline, where I said, well, now I don't think you need to burn an asset to bring in a backup, and I don't think a goaltender got moved at the deadline that would have been impactful to a level where if Georgiev got hurt, it would have been a difference maker. Fleury stayed with the Wild. I know Jake Allen went to the Devils and has had a couple good starts there.
They're not going to make the playoffs.
And look, great. Bowen Byram had a few good games going over to Buffalo. Sometimes you get that new team bump. Jake Allen's still going to throw stinkers out there. So that option, whether it was this past trade deadline or anytime leading up to it in the Georgiev era, whether you like it or not, he's been their best available option from a money perspective, from a talent perspective, and we talked about it just a few minutes ago. I'm as comfortable with him as I was with Kemper. So that's pretty much all that needs to be said about that.
Really, the only true number one that's younger than Ottinger in Dallas is Pyotr Kochetkov in Carolina, who's 24. He's really the only guy. And he's not a true rookie, right? Like, he played 3 games in 21-22. He played 24 games last year, so he's not a true rookie this year. He just simply isn't. All of these other dudes that are leading the league in save percentage and goals against average, Shesterkin, 28 years old, Binnington, 30 years old, Ullmark, 30 years old. You can throw Jeremy Swayman in there at 25, but he's not a number one. He's the 1B there, if not the true number 2 at this point in the season. Guys like Jonathan Quick, right? Who's having a renaissance year. He just broke the record for most wins by an American goaltender tonight for the Rangers. He's 38. All these other dudes, 30 years old for Connor Hellebuck. It takes a long time. So I think this pipe dream of saying, like, yeah, there's a goaltending controversy in Colorado.
No.
There isn't. But you do need to play the hot hand, and I think that they tried to do that tonight, although it was a reported scheduled on and start this evening. It made sense to go back to him, having stepped in and shut the door against Nashville. It makes sense to go back to that guy. But even if he had won tonight's game, you know who I'm not throwing him out against? I'm not throwing him like at Edmonton on a back-to-back. You know who's playing that game? Georgie's playing that game. Georgie might play both of those. He might play the back-to-back. Might do it.
You know who I've been thinking of with Justus Onanen? Like, should Georgiev get hurt or just stink it up in the playoffs, which is possible. I'm not going to rule that out. in terms of like, man, Onanen could be that dude who comes out of nowhere. I saw you did you throw Matt Murray out there on Twitter? Was it you? Did you throw Matt Murray out there on Twitter, like when he was with Pittsburgh, when he came out of nowhere? No, somebody else did. I think it was another Avs dude I follow. He threw Matt Murray out there. The name I've been thinking is Jean-Sebastien Giguère. Like, I'm looking at, when in his career he had that run. It was early with the Ducks when nobody knew who he was. Look, Onanen could do that. Should. Now, that was a hell of a run that he went on.
Didn't Giguère win?
No, he
Conn
lost.
Smythe?
He won Conn Smythe despite losing in the Cup Finals. So I think they got this little
25.
This little unknown in the back of their pocket that has more upside than Jake Allen, whoever they could have acquired at the deadline. But I don't think you should go into the playoffs with that as your one or that as what you're relying on. I think you trust Georgiev, and I think ultimately he will play fine in the playoffs. He played fine in the Kraken series last year.
He was not the issue.
That's not what did them in the loss to the Kraken. And they are not, I said it a couple shows ago, they're not going one and done after last year. They're not going one and done 2 straight years. All of the weird circumstance around that series, the injuries and everything else, they are not going one and done this year.
The numbers he threw up against Seattle last year, 27 of 30 in a loss, 27 of 29 in a win, 25 of 29 in a win, not great. 40 of 43 in an overtime loss, 26 of 29 in a loss, 22 of 23 in a must-have Game 6 road win, and then stops 25 of 27 in a 2-1 home loss in Game 7. Like, he put up, he was legit.
Only one bad game in there, really. A couple threes, but yeah, it wasn't goaltending last year. It was injuries. It was the Nichushkin absence, which created 2 offensive struggles. So for all the concerns about goaltender, that really wasn't what eliminated him last year.
Take our final time out here between the pipes. We will get through the NHL scoreboard on the other side, get you some bets for Bet the Pipes as well. Mark Springer, Alex Ryan-Emmy alongside Jordan Berg on Altitude.
Jeff Legwald.
The hip drop, I just think it's going to be a disaster to officiate. It's going to happen in a game, and everybody's going to wonder, well, is that a hip drop tackle? Is it not? And then the guy's going to get fined on Tuesday.
Altitude Sports Radio 92.5's Pro Football Insider, Jeff Legwald.
I frankly don't know why anyone would sign up to be an NFL official. You never get to be right. Everyone's all over you and telling you how terrible you are, and then they give you things like this, but I just think it's going to be really tough.
Listen for Leggy throughout the week on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5.
I got a nightmare phone call that no parent wants to receive.
Someone hit me going 60 miles an hour.
Dr. Ramos came highly recommended. When I showed him the x-rays, he immediately knew exactly what was wrong.
We've had a tremendous experience with Ramos Law. Really, I could not be happier.
Having the car accident was an accident. Finding Ramos Law was no accident.
Injured in a car accident? Ramos Law can help. RamosLaw.com.
Hey, it's Francisco from Ryan House, and let's get this straight. It takes balls to play bocce.
That's because bocce is lawn bowling.
Right.
Okay.
At Ryan House, we're all about the fun of bocce and great German-style food, and I've got the wieners to prove it.
Hang on. You mean sausages?
Right again.
Oh, boy.
All your favorite German delights here at Ryan House.
I do love those huge pretzels.
Let me cook something up for you.
Ryan House, next to Wally's Wisconsin Tavern at 14th and Market.
Inspiration spurs action, and action gets it done. Remodeling season is here, and it's time for action. Hi, Dan Cicchini, Done Right Kitchens, Baths, finished basements, windows and doors. A new and exciting look in your kitchen, bath, or basement. Done right, priced right, fully guaranteed, and with your satisfaction in mind. Just give us a call, and we'll bring our showroom right to you and provide a firm, no-cost quote.
And I'm Todd Cicchini. 1/4-inch solid wood resurfacing, complete kitchen remodeling, custom countertops, first-class bathroom renovation, top-of-the-line replacement windows and doors, or new living space in that unused basement. That's done right. For nearly 40 years now. Call us, 303-722-2295, 800-362-8370, or drhi.com, and ask about our bank financing.
Kitchens, baths, counters and floors, finished basements, windows and doors. You have our word, we'll treat you right at Done Right. Our schedule is filling fast, so reserve your spot. drhi.com.
Men, this is Jeff for the Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. And though I generally talk about medicine and effective treatments for erectile dysfunction and other men's sexual health issues, today I want to talk about love. Because love is the best reason to get treated for your ED. You see, ED can cause major relationship issues. In fact, men often push their partners away when ED becomes a problem. The condition can cause depression, arguments, breakups, and even contribute to divorce. But the good news is that if you're like most men suffering with ED, you can be successfully treated at the Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic and put a stop to the relationship stresses that ED can cause. I say this with all confidence because we have treatments that are effective in well over 90% of cases. Truly, it's likely you'll find you're performing like you haven't in years. So make an appointment and get the love back in your life. Your initial visit is just $99 and includes blood work, a medical consult, and if medically advised, a test dose. And if that test dose doesn't work in the office, your visit is free. Call 720-440-7900 or go to RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. We have 5 offices across the Front Range to serve you.
Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. Watch the show on Twitch. Go to twitch.tv/AltitudeSR. Brought to you by Safeway.
Beat the spring cleaning rush with big savings and priority booking by calling our heroes at Zero Res. This is Brett Kane. I had them out to my house, clean the carpets, get the air ducts done, and I'm so happy I did so because you can just tell it's fresher inside the house. It's cleaner, especially over the winter months. Think about all that dirt, that dust, that dander, that sludge that winter comes with. You're breathing that in. And as many as 1 in 5 Americans suffer from allergies caused by particles frequently found in the air inside their homes. So get Zero Res out to give you that fresh spring feeling. Over 9,000 raving reviews with a 4.9 Google rating, and you can see for yourself what all the hype is about. And this month, you can get 3 rooms Zero Resified from Denver's #1 carpet cleaner.
Colorado Avalanche Hockey, you're Between the Pipes. Presented by Safeway on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5.
Avs fall 4-1 to the Blue Jackets. Alex Ryanemi alongside Mark Springer as we wrap up Between the Pipes here. Let's take one more call. Carrie's been waiting on hold. Carrie, what's up?
Hello, Raj and Spring. I would love for you to talk to me about why our power play needs to go to the men's clinic.
Trying to get it up is what we're trying to say, Carrie.
Yes, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, it was. It left a little to be wanting today, and as always, appreciate the call. I thought they had a few decent grade A's where they get the puck to the middle of the ice on that little like bumper one-timer. They're throwing some wrinkles at this. We saw Nathan MacKinnon in the middle of the 1-3-1 a couple of games ago as they try and get these different looks. Honestly, the men's clinic typically gives you a blue pill. The blue pill typically has a number or a letter on it. The blue pill for the Avs is numbered 13.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And he needs to be net front. And that'll get the power play going. I think missing him net front and having to put a different set of guys there, whether it's Mikko net front or Lecky or Middlestat, you're just kind of moving pieces around that have their home, right? When Nichushkin comes back and he's skating right now, I saw the text coming in just a couple of seconds ago from Chris. Any update? No update on his health, but we do know he's skating with the team or at the team facility. Doesn't plan on being on this road trip. There's a possibility he could join the team at the end of it Thursday and Friday, but they're planning to keep him in Colorado until the team returns for the division rivalry games next week on the 7th and on the 9th.
Yeah, this is a case where I think the simplest answer is the right answer. It's just not having Nichushkin as your net front presence, and we've seen evidence actually this season that that's exactly what it is, because when he was in the player assistance program, the power play was struggling. He came back, and that helped the power play. And it makes sense. They don't have that size in the 2 middle positions, certainly the net front one, where you want that size. You know, They've tried Casey Middlestat a little bit there of late, but Nichushkin is just built for that role.
It's a master screen.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you saw today. What I saw was a few times where the Avs got these beautiful high slot shots from Kale that those are the ones that like just Kale rips off of a snapshot and then it just goes in all of a sudden. I was watching those. Tarasov saw those pucks, and Mikko's Mikko's fine net front. I think he's better off to the side, tipping and being ready for one-time passes. And, when he gets down on one knee and chokes down the stick, I think he's better that way. What I very clearly realized was you're missing a guy who is elite at setting screens. Like, that's an art form. To sit in front of a goaltender, take his eyes away, know that your defender is going to shoot against the grain and into your body, and have to hold that position until the last second. And not only get out of the way so it doesn't pierce a hole through you, but make sure that you don't get out of the way early enough so the goaltender sees the puck and can make the save. But you don't sit there and redirect the puck away from the net. Like, Val, the amount of times that Val is just, for as big as he is, right? He's like 6'4", 230 pounds, right? Probably even bigger than that. For him to get out of the way, he's a ghost. It's unreal. You miss it.
Yeah. No, they need Valeri Nichushkin if they want to win a Stanley Cup, period.
That was another text message that came in. What's more important to the Avs, Gabe or Val?
Gabe, but...
Ooh. You have to choose one right now. You get one player healthy for the playoffs. That's a really tough question.
Look, Val is amazing. You could argue he might, because he's a tick younger than Gabe, and he's got more get up in him, like speed and...
Might be better at this point in his career than Gabe is right now.
Yeah.
Because we haven't seen him.
But, man, I just think what Gabe brings from these factors that you can't even put your finger on, that's why my instinct and my Freudian gut reaction was to say his name, and I'll stick with it.
And the things that Nichushkin brings to the game, 200-foot player, responsible, blocks shots, plays physical, is a great net front. All of those things can be said of Gabe Landeskog and more.
Sure.
Well, you might have convinced me. All right, 92 it is. Let's take a look through the NHL scoreboard. Avs fall 4-1. The Penguins get 3 points from Sidney Crosby, including 2 goals and a 5-2 road victory over the Rangers.
Hey, Rangers season is over. That sucks, just like the Avs season is over tonight.
Rangers a couple of days ago had Jonathan Quick set the American record for most wins by a goaltender, if I am correct. Crosby just set his 19th straight point per game season that is tied for the most in NHL history with one Wayne Gretzky.
It's almost like the other team has good players too, and Sidney Crosby is a very good player.
I think he's the number 5 greatest player of all time.
Wow, give me your list. I'm sure you thought about this.
Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Gordie Howe, Bobby Orr, Sidney Crosby.
All right.
Those are my top 5.
Okay.
There's some movement that could be made around there. Like, I think I could throw Orr ahead of Howe, although, Howe played for so long and had so many points. But Sid's number 5. And I looked at the players that would come after him, and I took goaltenders out of the equation here. But, like, Jágr, I can't put ahead of Sid. I can't put Rocket Richard, Guy Lafleur, Jean Beliveau, Nicholas Lidstrom. I can't put any of those guys ahead of him. I can't put Ovi ahead of him.
I don't disagree.
Number 5 all time.
Yeah, I like it.
Islanders 4-3 winners over the Flyers as the Isles stay alive in the postseason race. Brock Nelson scores his 30th of the year, 1 minute and 24 seconds into overtime. Lucas Raymond scores an empty netter to make it 25 on the year and secure a win for the Red Wings in what was an absolute must-win for Stevie Y's squad there. Patrick Kane, 18 goals already this season, just playing about half a season. We've got one other final that is 6-4 in Toronto. Austin Matthews scores 2 goals, his 61st and 62nd. That sets a new franchise record for most goals in a season. And did you know the 62nd goal of the year this season, Austin Matthews' first empty netter?
That's crazy.
Nuts.
And Florida, too. Looking at their recent games here, and I still, on paper, I still very much so like this Florida team a lot. But in their last, let's see, there's a 4-game losing streak. There's 3 out of 4. So that's 9 games. They are 2-7 in their last 9 games. And that's a very good team on paper. Guys, it's just a long season. And there's ups and there's downs. Speaking of that, the Blues just scored against the Edmonton Oilers. The Blues are hosting the Oilers, and they now lead them 2-1. Those are your Western Conference favorites, according to the odds makers. The Oilers trailing in St. Louis 2-1.
Blues are trying to stay alive. They've got 82 points. 87 is the low water mark in the Western Conference, held by the Los Angeles Kings. 87 points. Nashville has 90. Vegas has 90 as well, which are the only two other teams that are close to that red line in the West. 3 other games currently going on. The Kraken have a 3-1 lead over the Sharks on the road. Shane Wright is playing in that game, first time in quite a while. He's suited up for Seattle. Then we're tied at 3 with under 10 minutes to go in regulation in Winnipeg between the LA Kings and the home-standing Jets. Standings look like this. Dallas Stars 103 points ahead of the Central Division, 75 games played. The Avs trail by 3 points. No games in hand, however, a 6-point cushion on currently playing Winnipeg right now, who has 94 points. They are currently playing their 75th as we speak. The Pacific led 100 points by Vancouver, 94 from Edmonton. The aforementioned Vegas Golden Knights bringing up the rear at 90 points. The wildcard teams, Nashville and Los Angeles, at 90 and 87 points respectively. Eastern Conference has Boston leading the Atlantic with 101 points. Florida shortly behind at 99. The Toronto Maple Leafs 95 points in third place there. In the Atlantic Division. The Rangers lead the league with 104. They're 3 points clear of the Carolina Hurricanes, sitting in second in the Metro. And there is a 4-team, you could also call it probably a 5-team race that you could call it for in the wild card here in the East. Philadelphia, 83 points. Washington, 82 points. Detroit, 82 points. New York, the Islanders have 79. And Pittsburgh has 77, all searching for that final wild card spot. Tampa Bay looks as though they have the wild card 1 spot locked up with 89 points as of right now. Spring games tomorrow. We've got 8 of them on a Tuesday evening. I'm a pretty big fan of Washington going on the road against the Sabres, who are pretty much cooked in being plus 114 road dogs against the Sabres. Give me the Caps to go into Buffalo and win that game on the money line.
Washington has been playing very well over the past month or so. I will go with... Let's go with the over 5.5 in Canucks and Golden Knights tomorrow night. Just injuries to goaltenders for the Knights who have just been in and out of the lineup. And Vancouver, Thatcher Demko is out. I'm a little concerned about this line being at 5.5. That's low for the NHL nowadays. But both these teams have been playing low-scoring games of late. I think that ends. I think we get a banger tomorrow night. Knights and Canucks in the Pacific Division. I think that's an absolute banger. So let's go over 5.5 at minus 118.
And that'll do it for us this evening. For Mark Springer, I'm Alex Ryanemi. Jordan Berg, thank you so much for doing double duty and producing both the game and the show this evening. Next time that you guys will hear our voices will be on Thursday night as the Avs take on their first of a back-to-back before they see the Edmonton Oilers on Friday. This game will be a 6 p.m. puck drop between the Avs and the Minnesota Wild. 5:30 pregame show between the pipes will start around, let's call it 9 p.m. local. That's when you'll hear Spring and I.
Let's go. Give us a win, please, so we don't have to pretend like the Avs are dead in the water.
For Spring, for Jordan, I'm Raj. We'll see you guys Thursday.
Get in the game with Altitude Sports Radio 92.5.
Join Altitude Sports Radio live from Twin Peaks 299 East Flatiron Crossing Drive in Broomfield Monday, April 1st to cheer on the Avs, where there's always 29-degree drafts pouring, a full scratch kitchen, and wall-to-wall TVs to watch all your favorite sports. Eats, drinks, scenic views. Crazy to think of everything that's happened in the last 25 years, but one thing that's remained as consistent as ever is Plumline Services. From Fort Collins to Castle Rock, Plumline Services has been earning the trust of Coloradans with plum crazy